The Invitation is a 2015 American thriller horror film directed by Karen Kusama and written by Phil Hay and Matt Manfredi. The film stars Logan Marshall Green, Tammy Blanchard, Michelle Huzman, and Emma Yahtzee Cornealdi. Alright, now that we got that formal stuff out of the way, it's time to talk about the movie. This review will be filled with spoilers, so if you haven't seen the movie, you can watch the video after you're done. So, my thoughts on the movie is that it was the best. I would say the best thriller that I saw in the last year. It has a great score, very haunting score. The acting is superb, and the dialogue and fleshing out of the characters is some of the best work I've seen in a long time. Because they call this a slow burn, but really I think you kind of need that in order to care about characters and a plot. If you don't care about the people in the story, you're not gonna achieve that investment from the audience. So with the dialogue in this movie, it's very real, and the writers seem to have put a lot of work into crafting dialogue that doesn't seem forced or expository. It just seems like this is what they would say in these circumstances, and I really appreciated that. I actually was a little disappointed in the second half when Logan Marshall Green's character and his girlfriend go outside after he was wrong about Choi being killed by Eden. And he's wrong about that, so he goes outside to rethink his suspicion about the house and what's going on there. So when he's sitting there, he's like talking about his son and everything, and I felt like that scene was a little too expository because his girlfriend already knows the situation, and they're just rehashing things that she already knows. I feel like a simple, like, it just still, like, if he would have said this, it still kills me, and I feel like it was my fault. Like, we that would be enough, because the situation of how it happened and all the rest, the girlfriend already knows, so you have to figure out a better way to explain that. But going back to the acting, Tammy Blanchard and Logan Marshall Green were standouts, but all of the actors in this movie were top notch. They all felt real to me. But Logan Marshall Green's character, he was so tortured, and you can just see it in his face. He didn't even need to say anything, and it just conveyed so much emotion. He was definitely the best part of this movie, and he really made you care about him and his grief about his son's death. And Tammy Blanchard played the role of, like, this psycho, but who's sort of keeping it inside and waiting for the right moment. She played it perfectly. She also had a tortured look on her face throughout the movie, but whereas Logan Marshall Green's character didn't have a problem showing it, she tried to hide it, but was so so bad at hiding her emotions, but the way that the actor portrayed it was perfect. She was clearly grieving, but pretending like everything was fine, so it was this mishmash between fake smiles and this look on her face that conveyed the grief that she was really feeling deep down inside but didn't want to express. So those two had such great interplay throughout the movie. But okay, going to the plot now. I thought the plot was really good. It was a slow burn thriller, but I liked that. There was pretty much, after 5 to 10 minutes of the movie, for the rest of the movie, there was not a second that went by that I wasn't anxious to see what happens next and curious about how it was going to end. And that's exactly what you want in any movie, but especially a thriller, where the whole premise is that you don't know what's going to happen. So they're in the house. He sees something fishy going on. The new husband locks the door. They're playing this weird game where this crazy girl is talking about how she wants to kiss another girl. This guy talks about how he killed his wife 8 years ago. I mean, those two people that they didn't know were off. There was something off about them. And the fact that they were friends with those people showed us that there was something going on there. And also, unfortunately, that guest that left after the I Want game, she was probably killed by Pruitt in the movie, which is sad. It was. I actually kind of wish that they would have ended it differently, because it felt kind of predictable at the end when Choi came and Logan Marshall Green's character was wrong about them, or he thought he was wrong. That I thought that was like a good twist, because they played with our expectations a little bit. I actually kind of wish they went in that direction, where the fears that Logan's character had were actually they were actually wrong, and he was the crazy one. That would have kind of been an interesting twist on it, because you're expecting something like you're kind of expecting what actually did happen in the movie to happen, that there's something weird going on and they kind of want to kill everyone in the house. But I felt like that was too easy. If they would have explored the suspicion and the paranoia on Logan's part in a smart way, it could have been an interesting take on grief. But I feel like they sort of shirked that in favor of this predictable ending where Eden and Michelle's character are trying to kill everyone, and that is exactly what happened. But I do think the movie had a lot to say about grief, which I like the way they explored that. Logan's character is holding on to grief with everything he has, and also not expressing his grief. Clearly, he hasn't opened up to his girlfriend about the extent of the grief. He's trying to just like hold it in and just try to like keep it inside but not express it in a healthy way. Whereas Eden, Tammy Blanchard's character, Eden, she does the opposite. She tries to block it out completely, and she's also doing it the wrong way. So it's exploring the different ways that you can handle grief and their effectiveness. So both of them are handling grief wrong, because Eden is trying to pretend like it never happened. She's trying to pretend like you can just throw away bad feelings just like that. But really, that's just the flip side of the repression that Logan's character is doing. Logan's trying to repress it by just being sad all the time, rather than just fully expressing how he feels externally. Whereas, but externally he's like, clearly not happy in life. Whereas Eden is pretending to be happy externally and trying to completely block out and repress that side of her that is grieving over the loss of her son. The problem with both of those strategies is that they ignore the fundamental fact that that grief is pretty much always going to be there. You don't need to want to kill yourself, and that's what both of them want to do. The difference is Logan's character is not going to kill himself, whereas Eden's character wants to kill herself and kill everybody else in the house, to bring them all to a better place where there's no grief and there's no pain. So what they should be doing is completely accepting the grief and being very open about it, expressing it, just being completely honest about it. Having no like unrealistic hopes that it'll ever go away. I mean, because it might go away one day, but it'll happen naturally, and it'll probably never go away. If you lose your kid, you're probably never going to get over that, nor should you, per se. The difference is you just should, accept its place in your life, and, find whatever outlet you can to express it externally. If let's say you're a writer, express your grief by writing a book about your son. You don't have to publish it. It could be just for yourself, just for that process of expression. You can write a short story, write a book about your son, write your feelings about it. Just literally just write a journal about like a grief journal. Or, you know, if you're a painter, dedicate a painting to your son. Just whatever you can do to externalize that grief and give meaning to what happened can help. But ultimately, all these things are just coping mechanisms. They're not going to solve the problem because the problem will never be solved. All you can do is just be honest with yourself and don't repress it. That's the one thing that, as we see in this movie, is just simply ineffective and just keeps it in. And that's what I actually like about the movie. This is not a movie about murder, although we do see that at the end. We see a lot of it. It's not about murder. It's a movie about grief and how to handle it. So in the case of Eden, she goes through a character arc that was very powerful. In the beginning, she's repressing her grief, and her way to solve it is to kill herself. So at the end, when their plan fails and they're unable to kill everyone, Eden ends up shooting Logan's character, but she doesn't want to go through with the rest of it. She only, I think, shot his shoulder, and she didn't finish the job. So when she's lying down in her own blood after shooting herself, she admits to Logan's character that she's extremely upset about their son dying. And that was a powerful moment because in that moment she finally admitted that she was still grieving. And that's all you need to do. That's it. She just opened up and she just was honest about how she felt. That's all you need to do. And that's what her character went through. She didn't have to try to kill herself anymore. She didn't have to try to pretend like it didn't happen. She just had to accept that she misses him. And that was the growth that she went through. She finally did that hard thing of admitting her grief. In the case of Logan's character, we see a very important scene that I referenced earlier where he's on the bench outside the house and he's talking to his girlfriend and he's saying that he's been waiting to die ever since his son died. And the character arc that Logan's character goes through in this movie is that he finally, by the end of the movie, values his life again. Because if he were truly waiting to die, like wanting to die, being fine with getting killed or dying, then he would just simply let himself be killed at the end, right? Why not just drink the wine that had the barbiturate in it? Or whatever it had, there was a poison in it. Why not just drink the wine, right? If you're willing to die, if you're ready to die, waiting to die, why didn't he do it? You know why? Because he finally learned that he doesn't want to die. And that's what he went through here. By fighting for his life at the end of the movie, he finally realized that he values his life, and probably after the movie's over, he's probably going to end up moving on more than he did in the past. He'll, because you can never fully move on from that. He's going to realize that life is worth living. Otherwise, he wouldn't have fought for his life back there in the house. So these characters go through changes, and that's what you want from a movie. You want growth, you want change, and those two main characters go through that change in relation to grief. So I give this movie an A. I'd recommend you watch it. Actually, you've probably already watched it because, like I said in the beginning, there's spoilers. So I hope you haven't watched this if you haven't seen it already. But in case you have, watch it anyway. It's a good movie. But thanks for watching.